Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're getting into the frameworks of a really celebrated self-experimenter and teacher. Our mission is to pull out his best techniques for things like accelerated learning, performance, and maybe most importantly, profound mental health.
And for you, the learner, this is all about giving you an actionable roadmap. You know, when you face something complicated, the goal isn't to get overwhelmed. It's to find the simplicity in it all. We're basically giving you recipes or algorithms that you can go test tomorrow with very low risk. The whole point is speeding up how you get knowledge because, time is the one thing you can't get back.
Exactly. So here's what we're covering in this deep dive. First, a 4-step framework for mastering skills fast, what he calls meta-learning. Then we'll look at how he picks professional projects, which is really key to his whole strategy. And finally, we're getting into his mental health toolkit, some really cutting-edge stuff on bioelectric medicine, metabolic psychiatry, and psychedelic therapies.
Okay,
So let's start there. The big goal is to accelerate how you learn complicated things. The argument is you have to stop treating every subject like it's in its own little box. You need a master framework.
Absolutely. That's meta-learning. It's a system for figuring things out on your own, whether it's coding or, competitive chess. And this framework is called DSS, Deconstruction, Selection, Sequencing, and Stakes.
All right, deconstruction. When I hear that, I just think of, a school syllabus. What does it mean here?
It's about taking a huge kind of fuzzy goal like learn Japanese or learn to swim and just breaking it down into its smallest parts. And what's fascinating is how easy it is to get help with this. You can get an Olympic silver medalist on a Zoom call for like $50 to $100 an hour to help you figure out what really matters.
So that's amazing. It just lowers the barrier completely. Yeah. So you've deconstructed it. How do you not get analysis paralysis? Is that where the 80-20 rule, Pareto's law, comes in?
That's exactly where selection hits. You pick the 20% of the material that gives you 80% of the results. Think about learning a language. Instead of trying to learn, thousands of words, you just focus on the top 500 to 1,500. That alone can get you to a pretty reasonable conversational fluency in like 8 to 12 weeks.
But selection is useless if you don't do the third step right, which is sequencing. You call this the magic sauce.
It is. It's putting those pieces in the right logical order. So with swimming, for instance, the insight was to forget about breathing at first. Just focus on gliding and kicking. Build the fuselage of your body in the water. Then you add breathing. The order is everything.
And then the final piece.
Yeah.
Stakes. Because just wanting to do something or having the right plan, it's just never enough, is it?
Never. You need strong incentives. Real skin in the game. The suggestion is pretty extreme, but it works. Give a friend a few $100s. If you fail, they have to donate it in your name to the political candidate you hate the most.
Wow. Okay, that is some serious motivation. It's not just about money. It's about avoiding something you viscerally oppose.
Exactly. It weaponizes your own accountability.
And once you're using this DSS system, it's also crucial to remember that progress isn't linear. It's not a straight line up. Knowing that a plateau is coming helps you, weather the storm and not quit right before you hit that big breakthrough.
Yeah, and that idea actually carries over directly into his professional strategy. He pretty much rejects the whole 5 or 10-year career plan. He thinks it just forces you to play it way too safe.
Right. So instead, the focus is on these 6 to 12-month projects. And inside those, you're running little 2 to 4 week experiments. But the key is how you pick the projects. They have to optimize for relationships and skills that will outlast the project itself.
The Stumble Upon story is the perfect example. He was an advisor, the company ultimately failed, but it wasn't a loss. He built a really strong relationship with the founder, Garrett Camp, and he learned a ton about web traffic.
So years later, Camp just texts him about a new idea, Uber Cab LLC, and he's in. That advisory role came purely from that old relationship and those skills he'd picked up.
It all comes back to sequencing, Relationships and skills are the lead dominoes. You optimize for those, and things like reputation, resources, knowledge, they all follow.
And to choose which dominoes to set up, there's this distinction made between passion and energy.
Yeah, he favors energy. Passion is just. It's too imprecise. It means 100 different things. But energy is biological. It's intuitive. Are you more awake after this meeting, or are you sleepy? It's a much clearer signal for making decisions.
So moving from performance to something much deeper, the personal side of this, a lot of this mission is grounded in a really difficult personal history. We're talking about childhood sexual abuse from age 2 to 4 on a weekly basis. And on top of that, a genetic predisposition to major depressive disorder.
And the result of that was just Devastating. 3 or 4 major depressive episodes every single year, starting when he was a teenager. By his own math, he spent about half of his life in a depressive state. That kind of trauma, it can really rob you of your sense of agency. It makes you hypervigilant, very slow to trust people.
It's pretty jarring to hear that, to see these high-performance systems built on top of such an intense foundation of personal recovery. What's really remarkable is where things are now. He says that frequency has dropped to maybe 1 depressive episode every 2 or 3 years.
Which is a completely different human experience. The big realization was that the trauma was the lead domino for a lot of his psychological challenges. He talks about compartmentalization, how it can be a superpower in a crisis, like for special forces, and it becomes a huge witness in normal life with your family. And he mentions that psychedelic experiences were part of what triggered the revisiting of these memories, bringing those walled-off emotions back online.
So the outcome is really taking that pain and making it part of your medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Using that experience to build a credible voice instead of letting it hold you captive.
Yeah.
So what does that toolkit for recovery actually look like today?
Well, the approach is to look for root causes. Instead of treating anxiety, depression, and loneliness as separate things, take loneliness. It's often self-imposed, but our biology isn't programmed for us to be lone wolves. We absolutely need real, analog human connection.
And beyond that, the sources detail 3 pillars of really cutting-edge interventions. The first is bioelectric medicine, specifically something called accelerated TMS.
Right, transcranial magnetic stimulation. What's compelling here is the new protocol. Instead of a few sessions a week for months, it's 10 sessions a day for 5 days. And the results are just astonishing. He personally experienced 4 to 5 months of zero anxiety after doing it. They also share a story of a 14-year-old self-harmer who, within 3 days, basically reverted back to her old, healthy self. We're going to see huge growth here. Focused ultrasound, microchips instead of pills.
Okay, the second pillar is metabolic psychiatry. This is all about diet, right? The ketogenic diet specifically. Is this mainly for treatment-resistant cases or for everyone?
It seems to show the most powerful results in those really tough treatment-resistant cases. I mean, they're seeing patients with schizophrenia for a decade get off all their meds in 3 to 6 months just by giving the brain a cleaner energy source with ketones. But it's also being looked at for preventing things like Alzheimer's.
And the third pillar, psychedelic-assisted therapies. This is an area where the clinical results are just becoming impossible to ignore. There's that quote from a psychotherapist, "What the telescope did for astronomy, psychedelics will do for the mind."
And the outcomes are backing that up. For treatment-resistant PTSD, we're seeing remission rates over 50% after just a few guided sessions. The thinking is that they reopen these critical periods for learning and development in the brain, which allows for this deep rewiring and recovery.
So let's talk about one more thing you flagged, this bonus area, vagus nerve stimulation. VNS.
Yeah, this is fascinating. The vagus nerve itself is just massive. It's 2 bundles of 100,000 fibers each, like transatlantic cables between your brainstem and your gut. There's really compelling science here from people like Dr. Brian Tracy. It's already FDA approved as an implant for things like rheumatoid arthritis.
But what about non-invasively?
The results can be just as dramatic. A friend of his had tried everything for high-stress breathing, cold plunges, and saw only tiny gains in heart rate variability, or HRV. But then he used this prescription device, GammaCore, to stimulate the vagus nerve. His HRV tripled in 2 to 4 weeks. That's a staggering improvement in resilience.
So to bring it all home, we have these systems for high performance, the DSS method, and then we have the absolute necessity of deep personal health to even be able to use them.
Exactly. And if you look at the big picture for him now, it's all about relationships. He's planning the next big chapter, a partner, a family. He sees the intense focus on books and startups as just squeezing out marginal gains compared to what you get from investing in people.
It's a really profound shift. But let's leave you, the listener, with one last really actionable idea that kind of integrates both of these worlds. It's called the mini retirement.
The idea is simple. You take a 4-week mini retirement once a year, and you go completely off-grid. No laptop, no phone except for emergencies. It works for 2 reasons. First, it lets you work with incredible intensity the rest of the year because you know that deep rest is coming. And second, it's a forcing function for your business. You have to build better systems so your team can make decisions without you. And, maybe most importantly, if the thought of 4 weeks off gives you a panic attack because you don't know what to do with yourself, that's your wake-up call. It means you desperately need to cultivate interests outside of your maniacal focus. Go schedule your 4 weeks off right now.